Welcome to Get Your FRQ On. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to use a quadratic regression, a cubic regression, and a quartic regression to model polynomial data from your stat editor. So the first thing we're going to want to do is make sure that we have some data set up. We're going to go to Stat, and then Edit. And I've got 3 data points in these two lists, L1 and L2. And just so we see what that looks like, I'm going to graph that. I've turned a stat plot on so that we can see this. If you don't know how to turn stat plots on, go to second y equals, and then you can turn stat plots on from there. So here is my stat plot for those 3 ordered pairs. Now remember, if we have 3 ordered pairs that are nonlinear or non-collinear, there is a quadratic function that contains all 3 of them, and because we only have 3, we should use a quadratic model to model this data. So to do that, we're going to go to Stat, and then I'm going to move over to Calc, and then quadratic regression is number 5. My X list is L1, my Y list is L2. I do like to store the regression equation, so I'm going to go down to Store Regression Equation, go to variables, y-vars 1, 1, and then when I'm ready, I'm going to go down to calculate and hit enter. And this tells me the value of a, b, and c. Also, notice it does set that equal to my y1 function. And if I graph it, notice the parabola does go through all the points. Similarly, if I go back to my stat editor, I'm just going to add another point. Let's say we have the point 6, 5. Now we have 4 points, and so we should use a cubic model to get this data. So if I graph this, I'm going to delete this because that's no longer applicable. So I have these 3 points, and now I want a cubic model to fit this data. If I go to Stat, Calc, cubic regression is number 6. Again, I'm going to want to store that, and then calculate, and I get these values for A, B, and C. If I go to graph it, notice my cubic function does in fact go through those 4 points, or at least comes really close to them. It should go through all of them. That is the idea. And then if you add another point, you can use quartic regression. Remember, 3 points you'll use quadratic, 4 points you'll use cubic, 5 points you'll use quartic. In other words, whatever the number of points that you have, you're going to go 1 lower than that for the degree of your model, and your model should go through all the points if you do that correctly. And so that's how you can do that with a graphing calculator.